This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everyone, nothing like some tech problems on a Tuesday, but here we are. It looks like almost everyone has rejoined us. And if not, I am recording the session and you'll be able to find this on the YouTube channel that I've created, and I'll send out the link later. I appreciate your patience. While we're waiting for everyone to get started, I'll introduce myself. My name is Laura Davis, and I am the founder and president of Ignite HR. And we are an HR outsourcing company where you can have your very own HR team at a fraction of the cost of a full-time employee. And we handle everything in the employee life cycle from hire to retire, and that includes helping you hire and onboard your employees, manage their payroll and their employee benefits. And we even now offer employee benefits from major medical carriers such as Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and many more. So I'm very excited about that additional service. And if you move your benefit plans over to us, you may be able to have HR assistance at little or no cost to you. So if you're interested in that, you'll find my contact information at the end of the webinar, and I'd love to talk with you more about that. I have one remaining coaching spot available for April. I am loving doing this with managers. What we have been doing is we sit down and we talk about every single member of your team. And then each week, or excuse me, every other week, whenever we meet, we have bi-weekly meetings. We have a learning agenda. So we talk about things like how to give performance feedback, whether that's positive or negative. We talk about having difficult conversations about conflict and team dynamics. And every single week it's a different topic. And so far we have been having a lot of success handling some long-standing issues within teams. So that's an exciting thing. And I have one spot remaining that will start in April. And again, we will meet every other week virtually for 3 months on this program. So without further ado, the reason that I've called you here today is because I was thinking to myself as I was working with several different clients and the issues that they were facing, it occurred to me that many people are promoted into a management position because they're the best at what they do. They're the best salesperson, the best accountant, the best technology person. But the problem is that they're never given any instruction on how to manage people. So they're just kind of thrown into the lion's den without any tools. So, you know, these webinars are only an hour. So I thought if I only had an hour to tell a person everything they needed to know about being a manager, what would be the most important things that I would tell them? So I came up with a list of 5 things, and that's what I'm going to go through today. So if you're a new manager, this is going to be critical to you, and that is the road from peer to manager. But if you're an existing manager, don't think for a second that this doesn't apply to you at all, because I repeatedly see people who have been in management positions for years, but they are still acting like a peer to their employees. And it puts them in a really tough spot where they can't give feedback or they don't feel comfortable in managing the responsibilities that they've been assigned. And the fact is that you can still be friends. We're all just humans. There's nothing that says we can't be friends once we become a manager, but we do have to establish some boundaries and take care not to alienate people so that both you can maintain that friendship and you can meet the responsibilities of being a manager. So some of the conversations that I feel like would be beneficial for you to have would be to talk about it being your responsibility to keep some things confidential. I'll tell you a little horror story from my past. And this was many, many years ago. And the person that it applies to has long since retired. So I think she'd be okay with me telling you this story. But I had a manager once who became privy to some information that there was going to be a layoff. And unfortunately, in a group of people, she let it slip. And that little slip multiplied on her really, really quickly. And of course, once she let it slip, then it became a topic of conversation and it got back to the leadership at the company that I worked for at that time. And that ended up in her termination. And it was probably one of the most devastating points of her career. And the fact is that I think she might have had it on her heart that some of these people were going to lose their job, and that's what caused it to come out in that conversation. But the fact is that telling those people on Friday that they were going to be laid off on Monday didn't help them. It didn't change the situation. As a matter of fact, it made it worse because then they had to wonder all weekend. They didn't know all the facts. They didn't know that they were getting a severance package or outplacement assistance. All they had was a boatload of worry. So, yes, you are going to be given information as a manager that you will have to keep confidential. But in the end, if you're working for a reputable company of high character and high quality, you're not keeping things confidential that will hurt a person. You are keeping things confidential until the story develops, until the bigger picture can be addressed. There shouldn't be any smoke or mirrors or secrets that you're hiding that would be hurtful to people. So that's something that you have to tell those people that you are going to lunch with or going to happy hour with on Friday, that yes, it is my responsibility to keep some things confidential, but I, as your friend and your leader, will always represent you in those conversations. And on the flip side of that, if you tell me something confidential, I'm going to keep that as confidential as I possibly can to fulfill my responsibilities. Now, if you tell me something that is going to hurt the company, like if you tell me that you're being subject to harassment or that something bad is going on, I need to address that. And that's something that I would need to address whether I was your manager or if I was still your peer and we were only talking as friends. If something like that is going on, I need to let somebody know. So, yeah, you can still talk to me just like you always have. And yeah, we'll still go to lunch together. It may not be every day because my responsibilities have been elevated. And I want to be sure that I don't exclude people because I want to be a good manager and a good friend to you and to the other people on the team. So just have these conversations with people. And I think that if they're really your friend, they'll understand. And another thing that is really, really important as you travel down that road into being a manager is to lead by example. You now have the opportunity to implement rules and policies. But the thing is that you have to follow those rules too, or you're setting a very poor example for your team. And that will be a really fast way to alienate those on your team, whether they are just a friend or if they are a problem on your team. So, just recently had a conflict between an employee and a manager that we were working through. And one of the things that the manager was having a problem with the employee was that they wanted to set their own schedule. They wanted to come in a little bit earlier and thus leave earlier so they could pick up their kids from school. And the manager didn't like this. The manager thought that the schedule is what the schedule is. But in the conversation, it came out that the schedule is what the schedule is only for employees, that she had rated herself on that scale a little bit higher and she could kind of come and go as she pleased. Well, what she was doing is she was showing others that schedules don't matter. So if schedules do matter to you, I suggest that you keep at least a consistent schedule that people know when they can rely on you to be there. So lead by example. That's going to be something in every phase of management that is going to be critically important to you. And the third thing is you're going to have to learn how to provide clarity. Again, whether you've been a manager for a minute or a month or for years, you will learn that you need to define the roles and responsibilities on your team. So think about how you can do this. There's a lot to do with communication in this, and there's a lot to reasoning. So I would suggest that you sit down with people before you go out and start implementing changes or saying, this is what you do and this is what I do. I think you should take a few minutes and maybe consider talking with people about what they do, why they do it, and how they do it. And then whenever you've got all the information that you need, sit down and define the roles and responsibilities and make sure everyone is clear on that. And don't just do it for your team. Talk about what your responsibilities are. And that will oftentimes help people understand why you are making the decisions or why you implement policies that you do. And communicate those policies, procedures, and expectations. I suggest you do it in multiple ways. Number one, write it down. Job descriptions are for more than just job advertisements. Job descriptions should be living, breathing documents that we're working on and updating all the time. And I even had a conversation with a client recently. I would love to see expectations built into job descriptions. So can you imagine if you had the responsibilities written down for a position and what great looked like in every single one of those responsibilities? An example I'll give you is on my team, one of our hard and fast rules is that if you receive communication, a question from a client, that if it comes in by 3 p.m., that client should receive some sort of response the same business day. If it's after 3 p.m., then they should receive a response by noon the following business day. So what our job descriptions would look like if we were to write out that responsibility and that expectation is the responsibility would be to respond to customers in a timely manner. And then I would be more specific about what the expectation is so that we're all clear on what does a timely manner mean. So the more clear you are, the less room you have for ambiguity or interpretation, because timely has a different meaning to many people. And in customer service, we need to think about what do our customers expect. And no matter what role you're in, every single person in the company has a responsibility to a customer. It may not be the customer that sends us a check to pay invoices every month, but it may be an internal customer where our peers or people in other departments are relying on us. So those are very helpful things to provide clarity on so that we all understand not only what is the road that we're traveling, but how are we going to get there. So moving on to the second thing that I would love to tell every manager if I only had 1 hour to talk with them is the best management tip I ever received, and that is to lead with trust and respect. And I've been to a lot of management seminars and I've read a lot of books and listened to a million podcasts, but I always think back to a manager that I had many years ago, actually back in the late 90s. And I would say that working for her changed the course of my career, what I learned from her. And what I learned from her is that she always led with trust and respect. And I put 2 quotes up here for you. These are my 2 favorite management quotes. The first part is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And Maya Angelou said that. And I always think about that. I want people who work with me, who work around me, who work for me. I want every single person in my life to feel trusted and respected. And in my experience, the old golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is that when I trust and respect other people, they trust and respect me. And that's how I want to be treated. And so that's how I aim to make people feel. And my second favorite management quote, which later on I'll talk about some books by John Maxwell, but he said, people rise and fall to meet your level of expectations for them. If you express skepticism and doubt in others, they will return your lack of confidence with mediocrity. But if you believe in them and expect them to do well, they will go the extra mile trying to do their best. And I've been in HR for I think about 27 years now. Of that 27, I've probably been in a management role about 20 years. And that is time and time again proven true. Is I see managers treating people like they go into the game expecting people to fail or expecting people to try to take shortcuts or try to make mistakes or something like that. And when they expect that, that's exactly what they get, because people can feel what you think about them. So if you have people working for you that you can't say that you trust and you respect them, I think we need to have a deeper conversation about what to do with that relationship, because it's probably not healthy for you or the employee or for the company. But these are kind of words to live by, and I hope that they are as meaningful to you as they are to me. And along the lines of trust and respect, some things that I will tell you that I feel like I should say to somebody coming into a management role, but I will say it's a very, very important to do what you say you will do. I recently was talking with a person who has a new manager, and I've worked with this woman for many, many years. So I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, she is consistently a top performer. A new company has come in and bought the organization that she works for. And her new manager said that she was going to sit down and write out a list of what her expectations were for this woman's role. And that was almost 3 weeks ago at the time that we were having this conversation. And she said over and over again, I haven't gotten it yet. I haven't gotten it yet. And what that did is that sent a signal to that new employee that she doesn't say what she doesn't do what she says she's going to do. And that puts a little crack in our shell of trust. Just like every other relationship in our life, trust is one of those things that is hard to get and really, really easy to lose. And it's something as simple as that. This woman's role was not changing greatly. She was going to have a few new additional responsibilities, and her expectations may be different with this new manager. And that's what she wanted to know. And her manager didn't do what she said she was going to be doing. And that has started a string of mistrust. And the other thing I will tell you is you can be a great communicator. I feel like I'm a good talker. I could talk to a wall. That's what I'm doing right now because I can't see any of your faces. But the sign of a really, really good manager is to be a great listener. That means you have to hear what's not being said. You have to listen whenever people talk quietly. You have to seek out feedback and let that soak in and think about, as a manager, a professional that's probably been in your role for quite some time, you've probably been to quite a few communication courses. The people who work for you may not have been to so many courses, so they may not be great at giving out information. They may not be trained in clarity. So you may have to pull it out of them and whenever you get that information, you have to treat it like gold, because that is what tells you, are you doing a good job at engaging them and getting them inspired and wanting to do the work and to meet the expectations. Those are the little nuggets that will tell you if you're about to lose one of your best people. So many times in hindsight, I look back or I talk to a manager who got little tiny red flags and they just didn't see them at the time. And it ended up in an explosive situation, whether that's a person leaving a company or great conflict breaking out within a team. They had little red flags, but they weren't listening. So they missed those. So, you know, I would challenge you, after we get off this call today, Google how to be a great listener and just read a few quotes, read an article, take in a few tips and work on your listening skills continuously. And once you do that, address concerns promptly. That is something that I don't think I have ever heard an employee complain that my manager takes care of business too soon. They always say, I told her this was a problem, or I complained to him about this in my review last year. And unfortunately, we let those problems fester because I don't know anybody in the workforce today that their only job is managing. We're all working managers. I'm still actively doing human resources consulting every single day. I would say probably only maybe 10 or 15% of my time am I actually working on managing my team, making sure that they're trained or answering questions. The rest of that time, I'm doing the business of the company. And so sometimes I do get distracted, but it's really, really important that when somebody tells you there's a problem, even if it's one of those tiny little red flags, that you listen to that concern and you address it promptly, because all it's going to do is grow and get bigger. It's not going away. So with that being said, I would say be very consistent. That lets people know what to expect from you. They know that if they bring a concern to you, that you will address it, that you will be fair, and that you will be consistent in how you treat people. They know what to expect. And the fear of unknown is probably one of the worst things that we deal with in every part of our life. But if somebody knows what they're going to get when they come to you, that removes part of the fear that a person has in building a trusting and respectful relationship with their manager. I know every single time I come to Laura that she's going to listen, that she's going to get back with me, that she's going to do what she says she's going to do. And I hope that that's the feeling that my team gets from me. And I know I'm not perfect, but I hope overall I have built the trust and respect from people that that's what they have come to expect from me. So with all of that being said, be very self-aware about yourself. Evaluate yourself objectively. Sometimes I almost feel like a hypocrite getting on here, giving you these webinars when I know I'm not a perfect manager myself. I have made huge mistakes in the past. And I'll tell you, a lot of the things that I'm talking to you about in these webinars, I've learned from experience. Unfortunately, I didn't get to learn it from a book. I might have put in a crack in a relationship myself. I have said things without thinking that I didn't realize how they could be perceived. So I know that I need to be consistently working on my own management skills to develop those. Even though I feel like, I've had some experience, I've been around the block a few times with my own employees and with coaching managers at other companies. But at the same time, I always want to think about how can I learn and grow and do better tomorrow. And managing emotions. Anybody that has ever worked for me, they will probably tell you that I can get a little bit scattered. I can get stressed. That's probably the emotion that I am guilty of showing the most. And I really appreciated, not too long ago, I was talking with someone on my team, and I said, sometimes I feel like I shouldn't tell you guys what I'm feeling. I shouldn't show my stress. I shouldn't show that sometimes I am a little bit fearful of the future. I'm only human. And I really appreciated that she said to me, well, we kind of appreciate that because it makes you more real, it makes you more relatable. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that. That made me feel better. But at the same time, I think I do need to manage that emotion a little bit better. And we've all got stress. We've all got things that make us angry. We might even have things at home that are going on that are making us sad or uncomfortable. And those things inevitably come into the workplace. A lot of times managers complain to me about stuff going on outside of work in employees' lives, and they don't like that people bring that stuff to work. Well, I hate to tell you, but you, Mr. Manager, are a human too, and that stuff happens to you. But as managers, we have to realize that the face that we are putting on and the way that we're behaving is setting the bar for everyone else, because they, no matter what, whether we like it or not, we are leading by example. It's just whether or not it's a good example is the question. And I will say it's critically important that you admit when you make mistakes. I I think I do a pretty good job of this. I make mistakes on the regular, and I own it. And part of the reason is that I feel like I'm okay to admit it is because I know that the people working with me are going to make mistakes as well, and I want them to know that that's okay. That I don't think I'm perfect. I don't expect them to be perfect, and I want them to not feel like they have to hide things from me. So I do that, and I hope that that is a point that builds trust and respect with my team. And whenever I make a mistake, I said I have made cracks in that trust shell before, because I'm human. And I hope that I genuinely apologize. That is really, really important. Whenever you say you're sorry, never say, but in that apology. I'm sorry you feel that way, but that's just the way it's going to be. Or I'm sorry that you feel that way, but that's not what I meant. Again, put this on your list of stuff to Google: how to make a really, really good apology. So moving on, that might have been a little bit of a heavy slide that we went through, but I have really good news for you. You do not have to manage and rule every single little thing. The good news is that all of us are employing adults. I don't think that there's even any of my clients that currently employ anybody under the age of about 16 years old. So at that point, people need to start taking responsibility, and they need to be given some autonomy. And guess what? What people really want in life is to be able to learn and grow and make decisions on their own. So be flexible where you can. Number one, collaborative decision making. Get in and talk to the people that are on the front lines. A lot of you that are on the call today, I know that you are working in medical offices, and patient wait times are at the forefront of what we're thinking about. Every single medical practice that I work with, they're all thinking about how can we cut patient wait times. You know who probably best knows that? The people sitting at the front desk. They know what is causing the holdups in the front desk area. You know who else knows that? Those back there in the pods, with your doctors. They know what's causing the patient flow to slow down. So get those people together and collaborate on the plans and strategies that you can implement to solve some of your problems, because the people on the front lines know best. And guess what? Whenever they're involved in those decisions, they're 100% more likely to buy into the plans that you implement and support those and make sure that they're a success. They'll bring to you new ideas and innovative ways of thinking, because let's face it, as much as we all cuss social media and hate TikTok and Instagram and all that, there's some good stuff going on out there. There's we can get access to a million different medical practices and how they're making things work. And all of our people are on social media, and they're out there hearing these things, and they're talking to their friends outside of the company and their peers, and they're going to networking events or professional organizations, and they're hearing all of these things. So let them bring that information into the workplace. You don't have to come up with every single new idea out there. When it comes to work-life balance, that's another area where you might be able to be flexible. Now, there's different ways of being flexible. Like, for example, I said the front desk at a medical office. Well, we can't exactly let those people that work at the front desk come and go as they please. We need people there when the office opens and until the last patient checks out. But at the same time, there are things like job sharing, job rotation. There are different ideas. And so if you think there's an area where you absolutely can't be flexible, challenge yourself to at least think, how might I be flexible? And then think about individual preferences, whether that be work-life balance or how they like to be recognized. Some people like a gift card to Starbucks. Guess what? I'm one of those weirdos that doesn't want a gift card to Starbucks. I don't drink coffee. But you give me an Amazon gift card and I'll be there all day and night to make sure that I win that baby, because that's what I love. There's some people that like public recognition. There's some people that like private recognition. Talk to people about their preferences, and that's a way that you can be flexible. You don't have to do the same thing for every single person every single time. Communication styles are really different. I'm a very verbal person. I like to talk, and some people are not that way. I have clients that would prefer me send them a 2-sentence email, and it takes everything in my being to write a 2-sentence email. I'm just a wordy person. And if you've worked with me for 1 minute, you just know that. But at the same time, I know that if I want to get through to that person, I better be flexible and use their communication style. Working style, that's another thing to take into consideration. I have a person on my team. We all work remotely. I think most of you probably know that. And that's really cool because we avoid traffic. We don't have to get dressed up every day. But I have a person on my team who really likes to meet in person. She likes that one-on-one FaceTime, and it doesn't even have to be one-on-one. She just likes FaceTime. And so I try to keep that in mind. I have a tendency to get in my zone. I'm going from client to client, or I am on my email. And even though I'm a wordy person sending you, paragraphs long emails, I also want this member of my team to be happy and engaged and fulfilled. So we do get together as a team every once in a while. And I think she really likes that. And I hope that keeps her job very rewarding for her. But there are some things sometimes whenever you've got to be firm, and that's communicating non-negotiable decisions. Earlier, I talked about our customer response time. In my book, that is a non-negotiable. I would say there's maybe 4 times a year when I waive that principle. And other than that, I expect it to be met. And some of the clients that I work with, they have made the decision where they were previously teleworking due to COVID. They have made the decision to come back to the office. And it was a business decision. It was based on organizational facts that it was important for them to come back to the office. And we had to communicate that to their employees as a non-negotiable. It came down from the very top, and it was not a flexible situation. You're going to get those things whenever you have to communicate non-negotiable decisions. But my hope is that you have already done the work to build trust and respect from your team, that they know that whenever you communicate a non-negotiable, that you've gone to bat for them, that it is for the greater good, and they might not like the decision, but they don't hold it against you. Even if you were part of the decision-making team, they trust and respect that you do what's best. Another time when I would say you have to stand firm is when you protect team unity and respect amongst your team members. If you have someone, even a top performer, if they are causing problems, causing conflict, making other people on your team distracted or uncomfortable in doing their work, you have to 100% non-negotiable protect the unity of your team, because that will be something that can just basically disintegrate your productivity and your engagement to get anything done. Upholding company policies and procedures. That's something that's really important on several different levels. Number one, it allows us to ensure that we are being consistent. And remember, I talked about that earlier. Consistency is key. And that is number one, so that people trust and know what they can expect from you. Number two, so that we can be compliant and make sure that we don't have any discrimination issues. And number three, those policies and procedures were developed with the greater good in mind, to make sure that the business is going after its mission and goals in an effective manner. So that's an area where we can't be flexible. And lastly is maintaining standards of performance. I would say, and I think I'm even going to talk about this a little bit more later, you have to set those expectations and you have to hold people to them. Because if you start accepting a lower level of performance, you have lowered the expectation without specifically saying it. And that means that your top performers are seeing that, and it's a problem in that eventually they are going to become disconnected and concerned that maybe it's not worth their effort. Anybody heard the term quiet quitting? That's where a lot of it comes from, is that managers just aren't holding everyone to the same expectations. So with that being said, another thing, as you're moving into a management role, or again, if you've been there for a minute, we know discipline stinks. It is awkward and difficult. And even I, 27 years in human resources and 20 plus years of managing people, I don't like to have those conversations. I mean, it is almost a sure thing that the employee is going to have some sort of reaction, because my employees are living, breathing human beings, and that's what human beings do. And they may be hurt or angry or defensive. I mean, of course, I'm going to try to deliver that information in a respectful and constructive manner. But the fact is that discipline is discipline, and it's kind of embarrassing for people, or there's a million different emotions that it might evoke. But we've got to have those conversations. I always say to managers who I see are avoiding having those difficult conversations, what about the rest of your team? Um, if you've set a low expectation, everybody has to deal with those deficiencies. I have a client right now who is struggling with some really serious attendance and punctuality issues, but yet they still have a few people on their team that show up to work every day when they're supposed to be there, and they're engaged. But the fear is that those people are being overworked because there's other problems on the team. So I would say when you're avoiding those conversations, think about those people who really are performing for you and who are showing up for you. Who are you wanting to serve as a leader? I say, serve the people who show up for you, whether that be literally showing up to work every day or showing up on time. So the next thing is, if I said earlier, I had a manager in my 20s that changed the course of my career. And I got a write up from that person. And that was, I'll tell you a funny story really, really quick, because yes, even HR people get write ups. That was back in the day when email first became a thing. And nobody had really told us how to use email or what we should do or what we shouldn't do. But I mean, I was a grown up. I should have known better. But I forwarded a joke that had a bad word in it. Um, I'll just tell you, it began with an S and ended with a T, and there's a little brown emoji that stands for it now. And I forwarded that email, and somebody ended up complaining to my manager about it because it was offensive, and I had to be written up. And she had a conversation with me about professional communications. I mean, I was fresh out of school. I think I was like 23 years old. And guess what? They didn't teach me that in school. I mean, I should have probably learned it, but I didn't, I guess. So she built an open, honest relationship with me by saying, I've got to write you up, but I want to talk about why it's inappropriate. It's not inappropriate just because somebody might get offended. It's inappropriate because think about how people perceive you whenever you forward something like that. That is reflective of your character and of your standards at work. So, she gave me some really good coaching there, and she changed the course of my career. And you all are certainly dealing with much bigger problems on a daily basis. Well, hopefully not on a daily basis, but frequently, than sending an email that has a bad word in it. So think about that. When you miss the opportunity to coach and discipline a person, you could be missing the opportunity to build an open and honest relationship, or to even change the course of somebody's career. And then lastly, but probably most of all, how will you feel if your senior management comes to you and says, we have had it with Jane or John Doe and their poor performance or their poor behavior, terminate them today, and you never gave them fair warning? Brene Brown, one of my favorite authors, said, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And I think kind is a word that we're seeing a lot in culture today. People are wearing t-shirts and ball caps that say, be kind. That's a good way to be kind, is to let people know what the expectations are and what the consequences of not meeting those expectations might be. So think about discipline a little differently. It's not just a write up. It's not just something that's going to go in somebody's employee file and be forgotten about. It really can be a very impactful tool. So moving towards the end here, I will say my last piece of advice is to always, always, always keep learning. And again, this is not just for new managers. This is for people who have been managers for 100 years like myself. Great new strategies are coming out every day. Our culture is changing. And I would encourage you to, if you haven't read a management book in a little while, go out and get one. You can even, did you know that on Spotify for free, there are like tons of management books that they read to you? So as you're driving to and from work, do a little bit of reading and listening, and see if you might pick up a tip that is helpful in your everyday life. John Maxwell is probably my favorite author. You can read anything by him. My favorite book by him is called The Self-Aware Leader. There's also a podcast where people discuss John Maxwell's teaching, and it's called, I believe it's called The Leadership Pod. but you can look on Spotify, and it's John Maxwell. You'll find it. Also, How to Say Anything to Anyone by Sherry Harley. This is probably the quickest read and the most valuable information in a short amount of time. I have recommended this book a million times. It's called How to Say Anything to Anyone. And she in there tells you how to effectively tell someone they smell bad. And let me tell you, if you are in management or human resources, the day is going to come when you have to tell someone they smell bad. And that is going to be the most uncomfortable conversation for you and for that person that you will ever have in your entire life. Or at least I hope that's the most uncomfortable one you ever have. And then lastly, a super effective and impactful book, Radical Candor by Kim Scott. If you're not sold by me telling about the book, go listen to her TED Talk. It's about 15 minutes long, and she talks about how we can be more effective as leaders by telling people the truth in a constructive and respectful way. And she gives you great tips on how to do that. Radical Candor by Kim Scott. My favorite podcast, Dare to Lead with Brene Brown. She's actually not recording these anymore, but there has got to be 50 episodes at least that you can go back and listen to. And they're all based on teachings in her book by the same name, Dare to Lead. Really, really good information. The Leadership Pod is another one, and Honest HR by Sherm. Now, Honest HR by Sherm is going to give you a little bit different perspective, where I've talked a lot about communication and how to treat people. Honest HR actually delves they talk about communication and things like that, but at the same time, they delve a little bit into compliance. Managers often worry about what can I say to an employee or what can't I say, and they're talking about what is putting the company maybe in some legal liability. And Honest by HR by the Society for Human Resources Management is going to address a lot of those questions. And then lastly, I mentioned I've got a one-on-one coaching spot open with me for April, and I would love to work with you and help you to continue building your management toolbox. So if you'd like to talk with me about that, this is my email address, laura@ignitehrpro.com, and my telephone number is there on the screen. We'll have another session coming up in April. Watch your email for an announcement. If you have a topic suggestion, I would love to hear from you, because I want to talk about things that are interesting and valuable to you. Just drop me an email and tell me what that is. Someone sent me a topic last month that they wanted me to teach them a little bit about managing drama in the workplace. So I think that might be the next topic, but I'd love to hear from you what you would like to learn about. And until then, thank you. I'm going to take a couple of questions here. It looks like I've got them coming in the chat. Someone told me that it's very comforting to hear. I think she was saying that in relationship to me making mistakes with my own team. And yeah, I'm a human being. I still, after all these years, make mistakes. So if you want to learn from my mistakes, I would love to teach you, because boy, just like whenever you're teaching your kids about mistakes that you made and you know that they're not listening, but you would rather them learn from you than making it on their own, same here. I would really love to talk to you about my own mistakes and maybe help you not make some of your own. So it doesn't look like we have any questions. I'll leave the chat open for just a minute, but until next month, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day. Email me, call me. I'd love to talk with you. Bye.